What if I told you that reversing prediabetes did not have to mean counting calories, cutting carbs, or eating perfectly? What if it's actually as simple as looking at your plate? Hi, I'm Kara, a registered dietitian, and today I'm going to teach you the prediabetes plate method. 3 simple rules that can help you balance your blood sugar at every single meal. And then I am going to talk you through some meals that I eat all the time to show you it doesn't have to be difficult or time-consuming or expensive to make healthy meals that actually work in your real life. There's no meal plan to perfectly follow. You're not going to have meals delivered to your house unless that's how you want to do it. And there are no foods that are off limits. Just 3 simple rules. Let's get into it. Welcome to week 1 of the 4-week prediabetes playbook, where we are talking about how to reverse your insulin resistance, lower your prediabetes blood sugar levels. If you missed the first video where I covered kind of the overview of the 4-week program and the background on how prediabetes works in your body, I highly recommend starting with that one, and I will link that video down in the description of this one, and I'll add it as like a little bubble at the top. That video is really important. It kind of sets the stage for everything that we're going to do. So I definitely recommend starting there. But if you're already caught up, let's jump right in. I'm sure if you have prediabetes or you think you are experiencing symptoms of insulin resistance, first thing you're wondering is, how the heck am I supposed to eat? What foods am I supposed to eat? What carbohydrates am I supposed to cut out of my diet? That is what we are going to start with today. Now, before we get into the 3 rules, let me tell you why I think the plate method is more effective than any other way of trying to change your diet, change what you're currently eating to reduce your risk or start reversing your prediabetes. Research shows that people who use a plate method see real improvements in their blood sugar control, and it's a very sustainable way to start adjusting your portion sizes and your actual food choices. Now, most of this research has been done in people who are already diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but that just means if you are a person with prediabetes, there's even more flexibility and a little bit less rigidity in the rules of this plate method, which again is really good for sustainability. When we have less rigid rules, we just tend to be able to live a little bit more and still see results. In fact, it's one of the best prevention strategies that we have. The plate method works because it does 3 things at once. First, it increases your fiber intake. First, it is almost certainly going to increase your fiber intake without having to think about it or even look at labels if you don't want to. 2, it balances your macronutrients, your carbohydrates, your protein, and your fats. And that's important because having balanced macronutrients prevents our blood sugar from spiking too high immediately after a meal. And number 3, it's visual. You don't need an app, you don't need a food scale, you don't need little containers that you're filling with certain things. You just need to use your plate as a guide to portion sizes and food choices. Now, even though I'm a dietitian, I don't really like to cook. I put meals together, but I don't cook most of the ingredients or most of the items in my meals, and you don't have to either. So everything that I show you today is going to be simple, accessible, and realistic for your real life. You can get similar items at any grocery store that you prefer and in the price range that works for you. This isn't an influencer meal prep where I have an affiliate link to every single tool in my kitchen, and you're not going to end up with a bunch of dishes in the sink after you do your meal prep, if you do it at all. I hate that shit. And this is what I actually do. If you love cooking and you love grocery shopping, or you have a favorite farmer's market that you like to frequent, that is awesome too. And you can totally implement the meal plate method with that style of meal prepping, meal production. I understand. My husband loves to cook. He had a restaurant at one point, but we are different. I don't really cook. I've got other stuff to do. All right, let's break down the 3 rules. Rule number 1, fill half your plate with non-starchy vegetables or watery fruits. That typically means about 2 fists of those foods. Now, the American Diabetes Association would put all fruits into a different category than non-starchy vegetables. But that is mostly because they are talking to people who already have type 2 diabetes. Now, we in this program are specifically working on reversing pre-diabetes. And like I said, we just have a little bit more flexibility, less rigidity in how we categorize foods when we haven't quite gotten all the way to type 2 diabetes yet. So I like to tell folks, fill half of your plate with color. Now that might mean some fruit and some vegetables. Sometimes it might mean all vegetables. Sometimes it might mean all fruit. That is okay while you are working with pre-diabetes and you are going to balance those foods with the rest of your plate. Non-starchy vegetables are things like leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, cabbage, zucchini, green beans, asparagus, carrots even. Basically any vegetable that's not potatoes, corn, or peas. And for fruits, you're working with any of those fruits that are really high in water content, like berries or melon, citrus, kiwis, stone fruits. Things like guava, papaya, rambutan. I don't have a lot of access to those here in Colorado, especially in the winter, but if you do, those can absolutely fall into this half of your plate that is filled with color. Now, I also don't really like melon unless it is watermelon at the height of summer, but I love berries. I will eat berries year round, especially frozen berries, and I loathe kale. You are not going to catch me eating kale, but I love collards. And so there are no foods in the fruits or veggies category that you have to eat, but you will benefit from having a variety of things. And of course, there's some times where you may not be interested in veggies, but you could do a bunch of fruit. Or maybe there are times where you don't have a lot of access to fruit, but you could do veggies. That mix and match is how you make your meal plan and your plate method specific to you and your tastes. And again, any of those fruits and veggies that are non-starchy or high in water can absolutely fulfill that half of the plate. Why are we filling half the plate with these non-starchy and high water fruits and vegetables? These foods tend to be higher in water and fiber and lower in things like sugar and calories. They fill you up without spiking your blood sugar. And that is really good when we are trying to resensitize our body to the insulin signal. Plus, the fiber that's in there is going to help slow down the rest of the food that you're digesting, which again allows our body to better match how much insulin we need to put into the bloodstream at any one time. And again, when we can use less insulin to do the same job, we are resensitizing our body. Now, here's the thing. Most people are not eating enough fruits and vegetables, like not even close.
Not even close. But
and I get it. I did not eat vegetables basically at all, besides potatoes, until I was about 25. They're boring and they're really hard to prep, or they're raw and the texture just doesn't work sometimes for some people. But there are lots of different ways to prepare lots of different vegetables, lots of different ways to use lots of different fruits. So stick with me, because I'm gonna give you some options in that meal prep section. Now, a couple of quick tips. 1, frozen vegetables and fruits are just as nutritious as fresh. In fact, sometimes they're more nutritious, and that's because they are frozen or even canned at their peak ripeness. And when a fruit or vegetable is peak ripe, that's when it has the most vitamins and minerals. So rather than having sat around the grocery store for a few days, or maybe, they're a little bit past their prime or not quite to their prime, you can get frozen that is, right there at its prime. And it doesn't take anything away from the frozen vegetable. Sometimes there is a texture change, but you can use them in ways that really take advantage of that change in texture. And number two, you really don't have to eat them raw, right? If you are thinking to yourself like, girl, I am not gonna do a salad, you don't have to do salad. There are lots of other ways to include vegetables and fruits into various different meals that are cooked and different seasonings and textures and temperatures that you might actually enjoy the preparation, or at least not mind. And number three, variety does matter. Now, if you are not used to eating very many fruits or vegetables at all right now, then I would just recommend trying and finding the ones that you do enjoy and including those, even if it's not that much variety. But as you try more things, you are gonna get different nutrients from different fruits and vegetables. Now, especially from different colors. So let's say maybe you don't like carrots. I don't really like carrots. Some of the benefits of carrots come from being orange. So maybe you do like other orange pigmented fruits and veggies. You're gonna get some of the same nutrition just because they're both orange, and that comes from a specific nutrient. Same with green. If you don't like broccoli, or you haven't found the preparation of broccoli that you like, but there is a different green fruit or vegetable that you do enjoy, you are gonna get some of the same nutrients just by having a different green food. And getting a variety of colors will give you a variety of nutrients. Rule number two, fill a quarter of your plate with lean proteins. Most of the time, that is gonna be about 1 to 2 palm-sized portions of those protein foods. Now this, again, is lean proteins. So things like chicken, turkey, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, tofu, tempeh, any high protein food that isn't high in fat as well. Now, why is protein so good for blood sugar? Two reasons. One, protein does not require insulin to be digested. And so when we are breaking down our protein foods, we are not contributing to the amount of insulin our body needs to produce and release, which is good. And number two, protein helps us stay full. It's just a little bit more satiating than our other food groups because of how our body has to break it down. And that means if you stay full longer, you are less likely to snack on maybe high sugar snacks between your meals, which overall can really help our bodies use the calories that we've already eaten without having to put more insulin into our system. Research actually recommends shooting for 20 to 30% of your calories from protein, and that can help with blood sugar control. It can also help with weight management, and a higher protein diet is often recommended for weight loss and muscle maintenance. And these are all good things for long-term overall health. Now, by using the plate method, you can achieve that calorie range or that protein ratio without having to weigh, measure, and track all of your foods. Now, I said lean proteins. That doesn't mean you can never have a fattier cut of meat, but most of the time you want to be choosing low-fat proteins because you're going to get less saturated fat. Saturated fat is the unhealthy type of fat, and having a diet higher in saturated fat oftentimes increases our risk of type 2 diabetes as well as cardiovascular disease. So that means things like chicken breasts instead of chicken thighs, salmon over ribeye, even skirt steak over ribeye, a 93-7 ground beef instead of an 80-20 ground beef. You know, most of the time. We're just making better choices more often. Again, we are not looking for perfection. And just like with our fruits and veggies, you don't have to pick the most expensive, most labor-intensive option, but there are better choices when picking prepared or ready-to-use proteins. Now, I personally use a ton of canned chicken, canned tuna, frozen meatballs, thaw and serve meat options, and I just look for things that don't have sauces. If I want a sauce, I add my own, so I have a little bit more control over how much sauce is getting used, because oftentimes sauces have a lot of added sugars, and a lot of added salt. So I am looking for easy to use options that are as minimally processed as possible, so as similar as possible to what I would make in my own kitchen. Although we don't have rules on this channel about, reading nutrition labels and number of ingredients, right? We're just looking for mostly minimally processed things and low added sugar, low sodium. So again, the things that we are buying that are already prepared are as similar as possible to what we would make in our own kitchen. And I will show you some specific examples when I talk later about the actual meals that I make. And rule number 3, you want to fill the last quarter of your plate with carbohydrates, with starches and grains. This is things like rice, quinoa, farro, whole wheat pasta, oats, tortillas, bread, beans, lentils, couscous, potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, peas. This is also where I'd put some of those starchier fruits like bananas, pineapple, plantains. I love plantains, and I just, balance my plate when I have them. Even your dried fruits, I would consider part of your starchier section, because when we dry fruits, we're taking out some of that water that we like to see on our half color side of the plate. Now, again, as a person who hasn't been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I wouldn't feel like you need to be very restrictive around fruit. Fruit is incredibly healthy, even the starchier fruits like we're talking about here. Just if you do have elevated blood sugar levels, it helps to be cognizant of the types of fruits and the types of veggies that are going to be higher in calories, higher in carbohydrates than others. Now, if you are thinking, wait, homie, we have gone through the whole plate and you have not mentioned some of my favorite foods or any of my favorite foods, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you can't have them, but you may need to reevaluate how often or the portion sizes you are having of those foods, and if they can better align to the pre-diabetes plate method. So sugar-sweetened beverages and French fries. These are things that I would definitely consider to be part of that starchy carbohydrate corner, because they are high in added sugars or they are just high in calories. So I'm not saying you can never have them, but they do need to fit into the plate method. One thing to consider is switching from full sugar soda pop beverages to the diet or the zero sugar version, and then they don't really count as that carbohydrate or starch corner of the plate. If you want a Diet Coke, you can have it. It doesn't count as part of the plate. If you want to have a Coke, you can have it, but you probably want to balance the rest of your meal by taking out your other dense carbohydrates. Now, if you're into things like breaded and fried chicken, burgers, wings, again, these are not never, you can't have these types of foods, but you might want to think about that breaded and fried chicken is going to be that whole non-color side of your plate. It's going to be your protein. It's also going to be your carbohydrate with that breading on it. And so it's going to be less effective or less useful in managing your blood sugar to then put that fried chicken on a bun for a fried chicken sandwich and then add fries or mac and cheese on the side. If we want to have that fried chicken, we should probably balance it with a side salad or maybe collards or some color option to balance out the plate, and skip the bun, skip the fries, maybe have a diet soda, an unsweetened tea, sparkling water as your beverage. Pizza, I would stick to a lean protein like ham or chicken. I would try to add some color to the actual pizza, maybe something like pineapple or spinach, banana peppers, and then I would probably have just a couple of pieces with a side salad instead of having like 4, 5, 6 pieces of meat lovers. That is just not nearly as balanced of a meal. I don't want you to think that you can't have your favorite foods or your comfort foods, because then we lose all sustainability. If I tell you you can never have a, Nashville hot chicken sandwich again, there's no way that can fit in the plan. You are going to abandon this by February. And I want you to feel like you can do this for the rest of your life. So chicken sandwiches, pizza, burgers, pho, noodle dishes, they can all be included. We just need to make cognizant choices about how we balance those foods to protect our blood sugar levels. Now, you might also be thinking, wait, I have high blood sugar. I thought I was supposed to cut out carbs entirely. Now, I also don't want you to think that, because carbohydrates are our body's main source of glucose, and glucose is the fuel our body needs to make energy. There's nothing inherently wrong with glucose. There's nothing inherently wrong with carbohydrates. In fact, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, these are all carbohydrates, and they're very good for us. They provide fiber, they provide vitamins and minerals that we can't get from other foods. But if the glucose, if the carbohydrates are staying in the bloodstream, that's when they become dangerous. So we want to keep carbs in the diet, but we want to make sure that we balance them with other foods and we have the right portion sizes that's going to allow our body to utilize those carbohydrates, turn them into energy, and not let them just pool in our bloodstream. Now, what about the rest of the plate? Good question. You can add small amounts of healthy fats to the plate as well. So things like avocado, hummus, nuts, seeds, cheese, salad dressing. These are foods that add flavor. They help us absorb our fat-soluble vitamins, which are incredibly important for our health. And they also help us feel full and satiated, giving us long-term energy. So we do want to include some of those healthy fats. Now, for portion size, I typically recommend about a golf ball if that fat is a solid, so hummus, avocado, cheese, or about a shot glass if it's a liquid, so something like salad dressing or olive oil. And the reason that we need to manage the portion size of these fats, even though they are not going to spike our blood sugar levels, they are higher in calories than protein or carbohydrates. And so we also use the plate method to control our portion sizes, which in turn controls our calorie intake. So we are maintaining a stable body weight. So that's the what and the why. Let's talk about the how when it comes to the prediabetes plate method. I'm going to talk through a couple of the meals that are actually included in your prediabetes playbook meal plan. These are things, again, I actually eat and don't require a ton of cooking. But ultimately, I want you to make meals that fit in your lifestyle, fit your preferences, include your cultural foods, and overall make for a diet plan that you want to stick to, not something you're going to be just trying to desperately hold on to for the next 30 days. And then you're like, I'm never going back to those foods again. I typically will eat the same breakfast and the same lunch for an entire work week or even an entire week. I don't mind that. I will eat the same thing multiple days in a row. But I also don't have kids. I'm not cooking for anyone else. My husband takes care of his own breakfast and lunch. So I understand you may not be able to just make 5 of the same thing and eat them every single day for every single person in your family. Again, find what works for you. I also don't want you to feel like you have to cook something different for you and everyone else in your family, or you have to cook from scratch every single piece of every single meal that everyone in your household eats for every single week. Again, that is a ton of work, and eventually you will probably fall off. In week 3, we are going to talk more about why boring and repetition might actually be the best thing for you. But for now, figure out and start trying things to see what might work. This is simply an example of how one health-minded person achieves consistency, not perfection, in their meals that I hope inspires you to find some things that work for you too. So the first breakfast that I eat all the time is a frittata. I start with whatever veggies I have on hand. It might be frozen, it might be something left over from the previous week that, are about to go bad. We've got our color covered. Then I add 1 egg and some liquid egg whites. The reason I do that is there's a lot of nutrition in that egg yolk. Keep it a lean protein, but then also it's easier to get egg whites. And oftentimes if you buy the liquid egg white cartons, it's actually maybe even a little bit cheaper. Then I will also typically add either a little bit of cheese, or I might add something like a chicken or turkey sausage. And then sometimes I will add a carbohydrate right in there, and I will add like some potato. All the details again in the Prediabetes playbook. Another breakfast that I do all the time is a smoothie bowl. I simply take frozen fruits. Most of the time I'm using a 3-berry blend. And then I just pour in a ready to drink protein shake. I like the Premier Protein Caramel, but that's just me. And then I will top that smoothie bowl with some granola for a little bit more fiber, a little bit more healthy fats. Sometimes I will also put in chia seeds. And sometimes instead of doing a granola, again, I'll grab some Velveeta and I'll sort of do it like a chip and dip situation, but a breakfast kind of sweet chip and dip, except it's smoothie and Velveeta. Nothing crazy, right? But we've got a solid breakfast in the morning that way that fits our plate method. Now, oftentimes for lunch, I am doing something that either requires no heating at all or very quickly warmed up in the microwave. So one of my go-to lunches is I will actually take a can of tuna. I will put in some buffalo sauce, and I will also mix in some hummus. So I've got a little bit of healthy fats in there, my lean protein, and I will stuff that into baby bell peppers as my vegetable. Another go-to easy lunch for me is I will take a can of lentil and vegetable soup, and I will add a little bit of thaw and serve protein. Gonna be super easy, inexpensive, gonna give you nice high fiber carbohydrates, some veggies, add a protein in there, and you're good to go. Now for dinner, I would eat any of the things that I've already talked about for dinner personally. But if you want something that's more like a traditional Midwestern supper, sort of meat and sides or protein and sides, I'm from the Midwest, I get it. I might do something like a salmon burger, turkey burger, chicken burger, whatever burger. And I might have it with like baked fries that you can do in the oven, side salad, a lot better than what I'm gonna get by hitting the drive-thru. And it's still quite fast, quite easy to accomplish. Not a ton of real cooking happening here. Another one of my favorite go-to meals where I'm putting different components together would be a couple of chicken sausages. Again, chicken is going to be a leaner sausage than if you were to do pork, which is good. And then I will do a frozen version of peppers and onions. I heat those up, and then I love to add sauerkraut and mustard for kind of that traditional sausage, peppers, and onions. Now, I might add something like a bun to my sausages, or I might throw in something like dessert. That will be my kind of carby corner. A cookie or a little ice cream bar or something like that. So I'm still getting my dessert. I'm still balancing everything with that plate method. Low stakes recipes, not a ton of cooking, but easy to accomplish meals that are going to be better for you, less expensive, and probably faster than what you would get by going to fast food restaurants, getting carryout, getting takeout. Here's the last tip. You might not actually need to change the foods that you're eating at all. You might just need to change the portion sizes to align with the prediabetes plate method. Like I mentioned, most folks are not getting enough fruits and vegetables, but most folks are getting protein and grains. So you're already partially there. You maybe just need to add some color to your meals and adjust your portion sizes, and then you're already eating the prediabetes plate method without having to change anything at all, really. Remember, this 4-week prediabetes playbook is not about completely overhauling your life. I want you to keep as much as possible of what you are already doing that is working, and make small changes to better align with what we know is going to be good for your health. Don't make this more complicated than you have to. If you haven't signed up for the Prediabetes Playbook, gotten the PDF, gotten all of those resources, I highly recommend you do. It's gonna have so many supportive materials for the rest of this month, and it's a tool that you can come back to whenever you want. So to recap, the Prediabetes Plate Method, 3 rules. 1, fill half of your plate with color. Number 2, fill 1/4 of your plate with lean proteins. And number 3, fill 1/4 of your plate with starchy grains. Whole grains as often as you can, but you don't have to do whole grains all the time. That's it. No calorie counting, no foods are off limits. Just adjust your plate to follow those guidelines, and you are already going to be off to a good start in balancing your blood sugar. Your homework for this video, number 1, start putting together meals that get closer to the Prediabetes Plate Method. Number 2, let me know in the comments the meals that you are already eating that fit the plate method, or one of the meals that I mentioned in here or in the playbook that sound really intriguing or exciting to you that you might want to try. Now, the next video is going to be about sleep and stress and exercise. And that one is going to come out in about 48 hours if you are keeping up with the Prediabetes Playbook live. If you are watching anytime after January 2026, then you can check out the next video in the Prediabetes Playbook playlist. Food is important, but it is not enough on its own to reverse insulin resistance. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited about this series. I really look forward to hearing from you all and hearing what is working, what isn't working, and I will see you in the next one.